Alright, hello there. Yesterday I never managed to do an AP of the day. We did a game of the day special instead, but it was mostly just because I ran out of time. But so yeah, getting back at it today, I'm doing a really weird idea. Alright, we're doing the Tyrian Service Medal achievement, which I already have 99% complete here, you can see. Minus one slot. So this is going to be really weird if this is actually entertaining to watch. We're basically doing a single world boss. That's what this video is. It's in 2019. I'm going to show you the fire elemental, because that's what I have to do to finish this achievement. And so right as I was going to do AP of the day, I noticed that the timer worked out perfectly. Pro tip for you guys, while in game, if you simply put in your chat box / and then wiki space ET, just those two letters, ET. We're talking 6 characters total here, really, plus a space, and press enter. It takes about a quarter of a second to do. It will show you when all the world boss timers and stuff are coming up. Really, really good. And that's what I did here today. Saw Fire Elemental was coming up. So yeah, I'm going for this achievement. There's not going to be anything really of worth I can talk about with the content itself, but we can talk about how this has evolved over the years, I suppose. And it might be there might be some interesting discussion that comes out of it. First of all, yeah, I'm playing Sword Weaver again, so the boss itself is going to be a bit of a challenge. You know, it does a lot of damage. I was quite curious on what the power creep would be like, for what it's worth. I'm already noting and wondering the power creep already as I do these current early events. Basically, when the meta triggers, you can stand with the NPC and get a bit of dialogue, or you can do what I'm doing here and go to each of the little regions and clear your way through this chaotic material to, like, clean everything up. I'm not actually sure what happens if you don't do these side events. The golem is essentially just walking to the final chamber, right? It doesn't lead you to these others, no? It's weird because this whole meta actually is kind of a glorified escort, really, just with some real side things. Here we get the Leafy Room, one of the two places that Core Tyria quite significantly hinted at Morgemoth before the big reveal. The other one being at COE, of course, that northern chamber. And then, you know, you got the little bits of dialogue and stuff around. I actually do really like this green room here, and I wish I'd spent a little bit more time in there, maybe looking for a key or something. But yeah, so I'm going to go on through, and, you know, something else that I was wondering about as I was watching this in 2019 is just kind of how the Zerg looked. It's been a long time since I did Fire Elemental. The achievement itself, just to be clear, is associated with the Domain of Corner release. So we're quite a bit back now. Over half a year ago, this got added. And I haven't killed the Fire Elemental once in that time. I would hazard a guess that I haven't actually killed the Fire Elemental since Mounts came out and Path of Fire came out. Because as you'll see in the video in a second, when I get on my Springer, I realized that exploring this reactor is totally different on a Springer than my memory, which is so strange to me because I feel like I'm always doing Fire Elemental, and yet it must have been, you know, at least like coming up on 2 years since I've done it. But I feel like I'm always here, and it's something that I'm grinding away at. I guess some of those early memories of mine playing Guild Wars 2 have formed really tight bonds in my brain, and I just have really significant, like, memories about them. But they're actually becoming more and more distant past. Do you guys know what I mean? Like, for example, I probably haven't done the world bosses in Wayfarer for frickin' ages either. You know, that drag the frame rate down massively, or the world boss in the very northern meta event up there. I know that's not synced to a timer or whatever. And yet, despite the fact I know actually is a fact, if I stop and consider it, I haven't done that stuff for ages. And yet, it's been a long time. I actually feel kind of bad for this as a product, as an MMO, that I feel that way, because I have to assume lots of other people have that too. And what it means is that sense of familiarity and that loss of mystery and excitement and freshness that we get our first time through, that lingers in our brains for a really long time. And maybe even never goes away, I guess. Like, what I'm trying to say is, in the ideal world, an MMO like Guild Wars 2 could come out. You'd play this content, and if you don't do the content for 2 years, when I return to it, it should feel really awesome, right? And like, oh yeah, this is cool. And not necessarily just in a nostalgic way, in a way that sort of recaptures those initial emotions and feelings of exploration and entering the unknown, right? Like, to a certain extent, right? Like, we can factually know about these things because we've done them before, but recapturing that magic, you'd hope, is there a little bit. But I feel none of that doing that here, this here in 2019. It just feels like same old, familiar Fire Elemental to me, except maybe if in some ways worse, because you know, it's so easy now, and I mean that's been true for most of Guild Wars 2's life, and maybe because of, you know, mounts sort of muddying the way the Zergs look and stuff. So what do you guys think? Let's actually look at what we see here. What do you think about the fashion wars we see here in 2019? The bloatedness of auras on players, the incidence rate of legendary weapons. Like there's a guy with a Dreamer there. There was a guy, it looked like with an Auric sort of effect around him. What do we think about the extremely shiny cosmic mount skins, that enormous fractal backpack we see there and stuff? Is it better or worse than the past? I mean, it's a pretty picky minor thing to talk about, but that's what we're left with on today's AP of the day, so there you have it. But yeah, I was genuinely wondering about it. I was wondering especially how difficult this boss would be and how long it would take for him to go down. We'll see that in a second. Of course, this area also has the key. So there's a hidden key you find in the area. You take it to each of the areas, do mini jumping puzzles. I noticed that mounts aren't disabled here, so doing all those mini jumper puzzles must be very easy these days. And then that unlocks a second boss after the fire elemental's done. And I was wondering very much whether we would still be doing that if people remember to do that in 2019, and I guess time will tell. Here I'm also looking at my Weaver skills. You know what I'm really embarrassed to admit? I didn't realize how easy the combo of Water 2 into Fire 2 was. Because Fire 2 is actually not just a field, but it's a leap as well. And so I've been thinking about that a bit today. You just saw me mousing over the Fire-Water mix, because I really want to see how hard that secondary strike on it lands. But we're in a low-scale area, so we can't really assess that here right now. But yeah, so check it out. I remember, it feels extremely familiar to me, when Fire Elemental gets to this stage, and you're defending the Golem here at the end, usually the game was to do like a tricky jump to land on a platform nearby, and you could feel like, you know, the dog's bollocks, the big special guy nearby, because you got onto this ledge that most casual world boss train style PvE players wouldn't have figured out how to do. And of course now it just dawns on me, literally today as I do AP of the day, that hold on, springers are things, and that's just not a thing anymore. Everyone just climbs around on weird stuff. So I immediately think, oh, that old box isn't good enough anymore. I've got to go somewhere even cooler and start trying to climb up on these walls, only to hit some invisible barriers and stuff. But you'll see whether the purple commander tag is slightly to the left there. That's what I'm talking about. And yeah, doing that jump, it's a very bizarre feeling to me to just sort of know logically, rationally, I cannot have done that for so long because it's not special anymore. And yet it feels like that's ever a present part of the game that, you know, I was interacting with just moments ago. I was also curious about this, like, caved-in doorway here. I think that, you know, there's several places in core Tyrian maps that we think about, oh, that's a cool hint as to another map that will come off, the Bandit Brisbane Bridge being the main example. I actually think that this one here at the Thorn Overreactor is a cool idea as well, to get us into that area of the world between Heart of Thorns and Core. You see that door there? And I'd never thought about that in my life before. Not until now. So yeah, that's kind of a thinking. Anyway, so yeah, we're just going to wait 3 minutes for the fire elemental to go down. I'll take this time to talk about the rest of the achievement. The idea is that, and it was a beautiful achievement, okay? So most of the time, when a Living World patch comes out, they have a lot of achievements, but they are fixed to the map associated with that release. So for this one, you'd think, Long Live the Lich, all of them are going to be based in Corner, and they're going to be around Gandara and all that stuff. But the devs did do some pretty badass stuff here, where instead you get incentivized to go to core Tyria regions too. And I think that's an incredible thing. I think that every single Living World release should have something like the Tyrian Service Medal. In this case, what it's asked me to do is, you know, do the Orion God Temples. Though some of those for this achievement are really easy. You just defend a random outpost and you'll get it. And you don't even really have to do the meta. It asks you to kill like Shadow Behemoth and stuff. That was another world boss I hadn't done for ages, but thanks to this achievement I've done recently. Just a fantastic achievement to make us go back to Core Tyria and do those world bosses. And I really think that that's obviously a good starting point, but let's have another service medal next time that is a shameless rip-off of this one, but instead has a different selection of world bosses. Now have us go to Tyder Covington, for example, and have us go to, you know, the Harathi commander or whatever. They could do that. I really wouldn't have any problems with it. And it ties back into this thing with me, how I really don't like the idea of Tyria, of Guild Wars 2 having a shelf life. I adore it whenever the devs add new living worlds, and it causes us to go back to an earlier place. So like when Season 3's finale came out with Siren's Landing, that story opened up with us at the palace in Divinity's Reach, remember? And you spoke to the priest of Balthazar there. And that was a beautiful thing to me because it's suddenly you had all these Zergs and players hanging around near that priest. Now, I was doing some recording for my Let's Play recently up near that palace and, you know, trying to get ambient dialogue from people. And when I walked there, I saw several players ran past me to speak to that priest and leave. And I knew, looking at that, hey, that's because they're playing story. They're doing a recent episode, and that's took them back to Corteria. And that's just great. And I can assume that a lot of people here right now are back here because of this achievement. The achievements, unfortunately, are account bound or a one-time ever and whatnot, so there is still kind of shelf life with it. But it reinvigorates the cool places, and that means so much to me. If there's one thing that should be really apparent as you play a lot of Corteria is how big it is and how many special, interesting, hidden little cubby holes and niches there are, particularly in the main cities. For example, when they added chairs that you could sit in and encouraged everyone to go back to those towns, there's a lot of places. And I think every single Living World release should have some kind of broad collection that has people just run around those areas, you know? And so I love this achievement. I think it's very, very, very cool. Unfortunately, for this video, it essentially means that we're watching something really old. But, you know, as metas change, as new elite specializations change, and the nature of what combat looks like and the fashion wars people have and stuff, even if this is kind of an old boss you guys might have seen before, it is different to how we remember it, you know, when we did it last in 2012, 13, 14, or whatever. So, yeah, anyway, the meltdown's happening. Here comes the boss. The question is how much damage I'm going to take here, because I'm on a Sword Weaver. I was really considering playing a different build for you all, but I couldn't be bothered to think of a better one. So I go in, I put my elite to improve my Condi damage. I just, you know, burst my signets or whatever. I move away and use the ranged ability there, the Earth-Water mix. Leap back in afterwards. I don't really need to comment that. But basically, I'm just trying to pressure. I actually had support, heal support from the starting phase here of the fight. And so that was kind of cool. It melted about the same speed as it was during the Heart of Thorns days, so I don't think Path of Fire has pushed that any further for casual world boss runs. But yeah, he actually did a lot less damage than I was expecting, but I think that's because I had a support player with me, and that's nice. I don't remember anyone ever really playing supports on open world Zergs in the past, but it's really fun, and I love doing it, and it's nice to see other people are. Here I get the Heart of the Fire Elemental drop. I'm guessing that's to do with one of my legendary collections, because it also specifies I can get it from elsewhere in the game. I just don't know which. But hey, so now we come over to the key. And the question is, oh, do we go kill this other golem? Just get a bit of extra loot. We obviously don't need that. The achievement is now complete. But no one in the Zerg has actually got one. Now, someone in local chat is going to type LMAO as though that's like some obscenely funny, you know, ridiculous scenario that he's not getting carried by someone else getting the key for him. So I have to assume that it is kind of still standard for people to go down there and that this is an extraordinary circumstance, but I don't know for sure. I'm leaving this in the video for AP of the day because, one, I find it interesting nobody had the key and there was an expectation we'd have the key, but second, I was also wondering, right, with mounts, hold on, you used to just be able to jump over for what it's worth, doing some weird jumps. Before Path of Fire, before mounts, you could just jump over. But when Path of Fire came out, look, they did add invisible walls all the way along, and I couldn't help but check that out for myself. Obviously, Bond of Faith is now in the game too, so I wasn't fully deterred just yet. I decided I was going to climb as high as possible, and then Bond of Faith at the peak of a Springer jump, and see if I can get through at the top of that. But we hit an invisible wall pretty decidedly there. The devs must have put it right up to the ceiling, maybe. I'd be curious if there is a maximum limit to it, though, and there's a roof on that invisible wall. I guess we'll see. In fact, I'll tell you the truth. I don't actually know if the devs can do horizontal invisible walls in the game. I really don't. Maybe you guys know that? But there you go. So AP of the day, Tyrian Service Medal. I think it's a great achievement. 1 AP, that is. But that does so much to reinvigorate core Tyrian areas. I think it's fantastic. See you next time.